If I were to tell you that the most expensive and powerful symbol of American military might, the $13 billion nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, is currently being hunted by a weapon that costs less than a single one of its fighter jets, you'd probably want to know how that's even possible. For 80 years, the US Navy has ruled the oceans with these floating fortresses, treating them as untouchable icons of global dominance. But in January 2026, as the USS Abraham Lincoln Strike Group entered the volatile waters of the Middle East, a new and terrifying claim emerged from Tehran. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, has officially declared that their latest weapon, the Fattah 2 hypersonic missile, is not just another addition to their arsenal. They claim it is a carrier killer specifically designed to do the unthinkable: wipe a US aircraft carrier off the map in a single, unstoppable strike. Welcome to the hidden reality of the new naval warfare. This is the shocking reason why Tehran claims the Fattah missile could wipe out a US aircraft carrier. To understand the weight of this claim, we have to look at the physics of the impossible. For decades, the defense of an aircraft carrier was built on a simple premise: if you can see it, you can kill it. The US Navy developed the Aegis Combat System and the SM-3 interceptor to stop traditional ballistic missiles. These missiles fly in a predictable arc, high into space. Because they are so high and follow a set path, the Navy's computers can calculate exactly where they will be and launch an interceptor to meet them. But the Fattah 2 is different. It is a hypersonic glide vehicle, HGV. When the Fattah 2 is launched, it doesn't just fly into space and fall back down. It enters a skip trajectory, staying within the upper atmosphere. According to Iranian state media, it can travel at speeds between Mach 13 and Mach 15, that is over 11,000 miles per hour. But speed isn't the only factor. The Fattah 2 features a movable nozzle and a secondary engine that allows it to maneuver mid-flight. The shocking reality is that a missile moving at Mach 15 that can also dodge is a nightmare for existing defense systems. By the time the Navy's radar detects the Fattah 2 as it pops up over the horizon, the ship has less than 90 seconds to react. In that time, the Navy must detect, track, and launch an interceptor against a target that is moving faster than a bullet and changing its path every second. The vulnerability is not a lack of armor. It's the fact that the US Navy is trying to fight a Mach 15 war with a Mach 3 reaction time. And then there is the geography of the choke point. An aircraft carrier is at its most powerful in the open ocean, where it has thousands of miles of sea room to hide and maneuver. But in the Middle East, the geography is a trap. To project power, the US often has to move its carriers into the Persian Gulf or the Gulf of Oman, passing through the narrow Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is only 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. In these confined waters, a 1,100-foot-long aircraft carrier is a sitting duck. The Fattah 2 has a reported range of 1,400 to 2,500 kilometers. This means Iran can launch these missiles from deep within its own territory, protected by mountain ranges and advanced air defenses, and strike a carrier anywhere in the region. Tehran's strategy is what military planners call anti-access area denial, A2AD. They don't need a navy that can fight the US in a traditional battle. They only need a weapon that makes the cost of entering the region too high to pay. The Fattah 2 is designed to turn the Persian Gulf into a no-go zone for the US Navy. The vulnerability is not the ship's weapons. It's the fact that the ocean is becoming too small for the ships that rule it. Open loop. But the speed and the geography are only the physical symptoms. The most shocking part of the Fattah claim is the saturation strategy. Military analysts have long debated whether a single Fattah missile could actually sink a carrier. But Tehran isn't planning to fire just one. The IRGC has developed what they call a swarm of hypersonics. In a conflict, Iran wouldn't launch a single Fattah 2. They would launch dozens, combined with thousands of suicide drones. The goal is to saturate the carrier's defenses. The Navy's interceptors are limited. If Iran launches 50 targets and the Navy only has 40 interceptors, the math is simple and terrifying. Even if the Navy's systems are 90% effective, the sheer volume ensures that something gets through. And when that something is a Fattah 2 moving at Mach 15, the kinetic energy alone is enough to crack the flight deck and turn the carrier into a multi-billion-dollar piece of scrap metal. This brings us to the intelligence gap and the MARV. One of the biggest questions is the maneuverable re-entry vehicle capability. To hit a moving target like a carrier, a missile cannot just follow a fixed path, it has to hunt. Tehran claims the Fattah 2 is equipped with a liquid fuel MARV that allows it to adjust its course in the final seconds of flight. The shocking possibility is that the Fattah 2 is smart enough to identify the specific heat signature or radar profile of a carrier among a group of smaller escort ships. The missile doesn't just fly toward the ship, it aims for the most critical point, the bridge or the hangar deck. The vulnerability is not the strength of the hull, it's the fact that the enemy's spear has developed its own brain. Now let's talk about the economic asymmetry of the strike. A single Fattah 2 missile likely costs a few $1 million. The USS Abraham Lincoln represents an investment of over $20 billion. Iran can build 1,000 Fattah missiles for the price of one aircraft carrier. In a war of attrition, the US cannot afford to lose even one carrier, while Iran can afford to lose hundreds of missiles. This asymmetry is forcing the US Navy to rethink its entire presence in the Middle East. If a $5 million missile can wipe out a $20 billion asset, the aircraft carrier is no longer a tool of diplomacy. It is a liability. The Fattah 2 has turned the carrier into a hostage of geography. But why the Fattah 2? Why now? The answer lies in the hypersonic arms race. Iran is receiving technological support from Russia and China. China's carrier-killer missiles, like the DF-26, have already demonstrated the ability to strike targets at ranges of 2,000 miles. Tehran has watched the US struggle in the Red Sea and realized that the age of the carrier is ending. In January 2026, the US responded by announcing a shift in its defense strategy, focusing more on the Golden Dome space-based defense system. This is a quiet admission that traditional ship-based defenses are no longer enough. The US is scrambling to move its defense into space because the water is no longer safe. This brings us to the psychological impact. The Fattah 2 is a weapon of propaganda. By claiming they can wipe out a carrier, Tehran is attacking the invincibility of the United States. They want the American public to ask, is it worth risking 5,000 lives for a show of force? It has created strategic paralysis in Washington. Let's look deeper into the carrier strike group defense. The US Navy relies on a ring of steel. But here's the counterpoint. Hypersonic missiles create a plasma sheath as they travel. This ionized gas can act as a stealth cloak, making the missile invisible to certain radar. The missile could be on top of the carrier before the defense systems even register it. And then there is the internal fragility. A carrier is a city with nuclear reactors and jet fuel. A single hit on the flight deck can stop all flight operations. If the carrier cannot launch its jets, it is no longer a carrier. It is a very expensive target. It only takes one small break in the system to shut the whole thing down. The Fattah 2 is a symptom of a larger trend, the democratization of precision. In the past, only superpowers could hit a ship from 1,000 miles away. Today, that technology is spreading. The carrier era, which began at Pearl Harbor, may be ending in the Strait of Hormuz in 2026. So, why is Tehran's claim so shocking? Because it shows that the invincible superpower is a myth. The Fattah 2 is a geopolitical disruptor. It is the weapon that has forced the US Navy to look at its own carriers and see not a symbol of strength, but a target. The fight for the Middle East is no longer about who has the biggest ships. It is about who has the fastest missiles. The era of the untouchable carrier is over. The era of the hypersonic standoff has begun. And in this new world, the floating city is just one shocking moment away from becoming a memory.